did my last video. Greetings everyone, this is the Question GM. I know it's been a really long time since I did my last video, and part of the reason for that was because YouTube just recently had this new policy of not allowing accounts to have mobile streaming if they have less than 1,000 subscribers. And obviously the only way I'm doing all these videos is by mobile streaming all this time, and I obviously don't have 1,000 subscribers, so that took me a bit of a time to try to find an alternative to get to that point where I could stream again on my channel and continue making this video for you guys. So coming back to supposedly part 2 of Gracklstugh, chapter 4. So last we left off was basically talking about how I prepped and read Gracklstugh in the city itself. And basically it comes down to that the PCs would eventually be asked to find a Darrow by the name of Droki, and they have to find them in a place called the Whorlstone Tunnels. Now, if in my previous video I should have mentioned that how the PCs can find Whorlstone Tunnels. There are basically two known entrances according to the book. One is in the West Cleft district, in Ledugur's Pharaoh, which is outside the Blade Bazaar. And the second method is actually through the Dark Lake Docks, which is why I mentioned that there is a potential place for the PCs to find an entrance when they enter into the city, and also where Boopadoo could actually escape or leave the party to make his way to Whorlstone Tunnels, and maybe he leaves some clues behind so that the PCs will be able to trace him back to get their way into the Whorlstone Tunnels from the Dark Lake District. But in any case, once the PCs have made their way into the Whorlstone Tunnels, that's where they will have to find Jookey, and that is what this video is going to be about. It's going to be just covering where they can find Jookey, or what is the path that Jookey will actually be walking throughout the whole Whorlstone Tunnels, and basically just a summary of what the entire section of the Whorlstone Tunnels have, all the different rooms, and what are they inside the rooms, and maybe a few things that you want to consider prepping ahead if you're prepping for this chapter or this particular part of chapter 4. And lastly, of course, this video is going to be having my own recommendations, my own ideas, maybe even some of my own experiences when I ran it for my group, and how I felt about it, and maybe how I would have done things a little bit differently if given a chance. So let's just get to it. So the Whorlstone Tunnels, the general features of it are found in page 68, and you're gonna have to really open up the book as I'm going through this video, because you're gonna need to refer to the map to really understand where and what am I talking about throughout this video, especially when I get into the details of the rooms. So the general details of the general features and details of the Whorlstone Tunnels is in page 68. Some intentional highlights I would say would definitely be the special mushrooms, which under the section of Feyre's stuffed suffused fungi. Only in the Whorlstone Tunnels you will find these two particular fungi, which is the bigwig and the pygmywort. So basically, just imagine it as the drink me bottles from Alice in the Wonderland. One actually enlarges the drinker, and the other one who actually reduces the drinker, as in per the enlarge and reduce spell. So the purpose of this is that the PCs are going to there will be a lot of places within the Whorlstone Tunnels itself where the PCs could actually try to manipulate their size to get through certain tunnels and secret tunnels when they are on a smaller size, or even when they have to traveling through the Whorlstone Tunnel itself. There are only certain areas that they can only travel if they are in a smaller size, or maybe even have some certain benefits if you're in a certain smaller size. And naturally, after turning smaller, they will want to get back big up. So that's where the importance of the bigwig and the pygmywort fungi comes in. And there will be plenty of places where PCs will be able to pick them up, and this will be the only place, as according to the book, where they can only find these two fungi, because the reasoning is that this is supposed to be Feyre's infused and only within the Whorlstone area. So the main event, or the main purpose of why the PCs are actually in the Whorlstone Tunnels, is actually to find Jookey. And in the book itself, it actually gives sort of like a roadmap into where Jookey will be found at which places, at which certain parts of the area. So obviously he will start with the entrance, and that will be under section the number location is number 1, and he will be going through the entrance. He will walk through the pool bypass, and he will then run into the fungi thicket. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he will actually take one of the pygmy warts at the fungi thicket and eat it, and then it will allow him to enter into the Gracklstugh mesa. From there, he's going to go and meet with his first contact. His first contact will be the Grey Ghost, and he'll be meeting them at the Grey Ghost garden alongside with the Grey Alchemist, where he passes in his first item of delivery to the Grey Ghost. And we'll get to that when we reach that section, reach that particular room in the Whorlstone Tunnels. And after he's delivered his items to the Grey Alchemist, he will be exiting out to the Fountains of Evil, where he will try to go to his next area. And from there, he will actually meet up with the cultist, with the Demogorgon cultist, Darrow cultist actually, who worships Demogorgon in the cultist pen. And he will actually be, and after he's done that, he'll be passing through the cultist pen. He'll be passing through the cultist pen, and he'll be entering into the Quasit playground. And then after he reaches through the Quasit playground, he'll be entering into the cultist hideout, where he actually makes his last delivery with a Darrow 7th, who leads the cult of Demogorgon there. And after he's done all his deliveries, 2 deliveries, he will be exiting the Whorlstone Tunnels altogether. So altogether, there will be about 10 to 11 places that Jookey will be passing through. And the book sort of gives an idea. It's a matter of at which point does the PC pass through these areas, they will actually be able to find traces of Jookey. But my recommendation for this particular part in terms of tracking Jookey is that don't underestimate what the PCs can do, especially if they have some sort of like tracking spells. Or in my case, I sort of allowed my party ranger to cast a Hunter's Mark on him, and she kept the mark on him, and could always sense his direction, and they just basically just followed him through. And that's something that you should probably like consider, rewarding the players to have some sort of tracking mechanism on Jookey if they are able to find him and able to put it on him in the first place. And it can happen anyway. It can happen even before they enter the Whorlstone Tunnels, or it can happen the moment they see him in the Whorlstone Tunnels and they just cast a spell on him, or make him a target for some sort of tracking device or something like that. So the idea when you're playing Jookey especially in the Whorlstone Tunnels, is the idea, because he's going through so many places and he's making deliveries to see different kinds of people in the Whorlstone Tunnels. The idea I'm suspecting that the book actually wants you to play Jookey is that play him like the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland, who is like always late for some appointment, and he's always like bouncing around and running around, and it's really up to the PCs to kind of like chase after him and stumble into some weird locations along the way. So what are the 2 things that is Jookey actually delivering to, or to who, and what is he delivering to them in the Whorlstone Tunnels? So the first delivery is actually to the Grey Ghost, and he's actually delivering some sort of black piece of metal that the Grey Ghost need for something, which will be later explored in one of the last rooms of the Whorlstone Tunnels. And the second one is that the second delivery is to the cultist, and he's actually in his bag is actually carrying a nail clippings of the stone giants who live above the city in the King Kong Caverns. And these are the same stone giants that the PCs will encounter if they actually run into the encounter where the stone giant grows a second head and goes on a rampage. And it might be one of the encounters that draws the PCs into the whole Droki and the Whorlstone Tunnel quest in the first place. So the players will definitely be very familiar if they find these nail clippings inside with Jookey, or with whoever he delivers it to, in which case it's the Demogorgon cultist. So we're gonna and by completing this quest, if the PCs actually manage to capture Jookey and take him back to Erde Blackskull, who is the Doga Stoneguard captain, this is a quest that actually earns them 150 XP each, according to the book. So that's probably like a main drive of what the PCs will want to chase after Jookey beyond story reasons. So let's start with the first area of the Whorlstone Tunnels, and you're gonna find that in page starts at page 69, but it reads straight into page 70, and the map of the whole Whorlstone Tunnels is actually found in page 71. So In the entrance itself, it's probably just a place where the PCs will just be aware that the Whorlstone Tunnel itself is actually suffused with Feyres. So other than just the basic, giving them the general features of what the Whorlstone Tunnel is like, and the basic descriptions, this is actually, in the book sort of gives an idea that this is actually the best place to wait for Droki to appear if they actually don't follow him or don't catch up to him before that. And well, that's all fine. The book says you can spend about 2d12 hours waiting. That means it's a range of between 2 to 24 hours, almost a day. But the idea is that if the PCs stay in the entrance area for too long, they would have to make a wisdom saving throw, DC 14. And if they fail the saving throw, they would actually gain a disadvantage on ability checks and saving throws until he or she finishes a short rest outside this area. So that's actually quite a big handicap that the PCs can get early on in the tunnel itself. So that's something that that you might want to control a little bit to see if this is something that's worth giving to the PCs so early on in the tunnels. And although it says it takes a short rest to get rid of it, but given how the tunnels itself is structured and all the different rooms, it's probably going to be a bit difficult for the PCs to find an actual good resting place, or at least reach a resting, or at least have a resting place that they had to fight for it. But on the flip side, if the PCs actually do make a natural 20 on that saving throw, they actually do gain the benefits of like the lucky feat, and you can actually decide how many luck points do they get. You can be as generous as the feat says of 3, or you can actually just say like 1 luck point, or maybe give them 1 luck point if they already have the lucky feat. So that's the entrance, and then moving on, you will enter into the pool bypass. So the pool bypass is basically sort of like a big stump on the road, to sort of, it's the moment they enter through the entrance, they will find a diseased pool, and the only way is for them to they have to get across the lake itself, is to reach the other side, and they can continue on their journey. And here, the thing is, there are obviously different ways to pass the pool. You can actually just swim, but swimming is probably not the best idea, is because that's the one that actually gives you makes you cause Constitution save a DC 13, and you're gonna suffer cackle fever if you actually fail the check. Now, I should probably also mention that after instead of the pool, the PCs can actually go through a pool bypass, and that's right from the entrance. And if they enter into the pool bypass, they would actually find there is a fungi thicket, I believe. Yep, there's a fungi thicket that's where they will stumble into the first batch of pygmywort and bigwigs mushrooms, and they can actually eat the pygmywort to go through a crack that would lead them across the pool without having to swim over it. And the other place that's very important, that's just right next to the entrance, is actually Boopidoo's lair. That will be in page 70. And it's just like basically just almost like right next to it, once the PCs have entered through the entrance. And this is actually where this is the combination of Boopidoo's agenda and motivations come in. That when they stumble into the Boopidoo's lair, they will actually find that he has actually erected some sort of like a altar to himself, believing himself to be a god. So, and not only do they find Boopidoo's altar, they also find that it's strewn with all kinds of with bodies, mutilated and not. And if Boopidoo is still alive and Boopidoo managed to escape from the party, he will actually be there, and then the PCs can, and he will believe himself that the PCs have offered themselves as sacrifice. So obviously, this is going to be a fight that either only the party or Boopidoo will survive. So Boopidoo being alone, he has some sort of powers to raise some of the corpses as undead minions. But in any case, I think it's not going to be a difficult fight for the PCs to put Boopidoo and his undead servants down. But that's not the end of just what the Boopidoo's lair is. There's also once they have put him down, there will be a ghost that belongs to a deep gnome, a Snefnablin. And the name of the ghost is named Pelek, and Pelek's going to ask the PCs to take his remains back to Blingdenstone. So this is going to be the place where you're going to have a plot thread to link from Gracklstugh to Blingdenstone. That the PCs might have a motivation to go to Blingdenstone right after they save, they want to complete Pelek's quest. So Pelek's going to ask the PCs to find his remains, and it's impossible to find his exact remains out of the whole bundle of corpses. But Pelek does tell the PCs that through Boopadoo's magic, his hand was actually turned into a creeping crawler. Yeah, basically he just turned one of his hands into the undead hand thing, and he wears an obsidian ring around it. So if the PCs can find that hand somewhere in the Whorlstone Tunnels, then they can take that as Pelek's remains and then bring it back to Blingdenstone. So that's gonna offer them a minor quest already within the Whorlstone Tunnels, besides the one that is to find Droki. Alright. So as I've mentioned already, if the PCs don't find the pool bypass by eating the fungi, the pygmy wart and the bigwig mushrooms, then they will have to swim across the lake, the pool, which causes cackle fever, or they will have to climb along the side of the walls to reach across. But that would be a 13 athletics check, DC 13 athletics check, and a failure will obviously result in the players falling into the pool. So that's just one step they will have. Droki will not have to face this problem because Droki will be going through the pool bypass. That means he obviously eat a pygmy wart to get into the cracks to slip across. And after that, if the PCs walk down from Boopadoo's lair, the next place they will stumble is the Parade of Fools. And this is actually another link from Gracklstugh / Whorlstone Tunnels to Neverlight Grove, which is the next chapter. In the Parade of Fools, the PCs will stumble upon into a group of dancing myconids, and they would be adult myconids, and there would be young myconids as well. And among the young myconids, one of them is actually Stu's best friend, by the name of Rubber. But the leader of this group of myconids is by the name of Whorlstone, and he will actually offer the PCs to actually travel with them. And by traveling, he can actually use a fungi version of Tree Strike spell that may actually take them straight to Neverlight Grove. But to be able to do that, they have to be willing to embrace the gift of Zookmoy. So that's gonna be problematic in the sense that if the PCs are not aware of the price to gain these abilities to travel through fungi. But the book does give an impression that Rubber is supposed to sort of warn the PCs that something's off with this myconids because they are seen as dancing in the Parade of Fools. And the PCs and if the PCs don't know any better about myconids, they wouldn't know that it's a very unusual behavior for the myconids to be dancing. But Rubber actually can set off some warnings, and it's really up to the PCs whether they want to trust Rubber or they want to trust this Whorlstone, who is the leader. But also if you have Stu will also probably be the one be able to tell the PCs that something seems a little off with these myconids. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the PCs to decide what do they want to do with these myconids, or accept or reject them. In any case, if the PCs do not accept the gift of Zookmoy from Whorlstone by spreading his spores, it will actually take control of Seraph, the drow prisoner who is with the PCs from Glockenveldt. If he's still with them, he will actually abandon the party at this point to join with the myconids, and then they will actually leave this place, leave Whorlstone Tunnels to go back to Neverlight Grove, and that's the next place where the PCs will most likely meet with Seraph. So this whole encounter with the myconids is obviously a link to foreshadow the PCs that what's happening in Neverlight Grove, and even giving an opportunity for them to travel to Neverlight Grove if they are so inclined to, and just want to leave this place entirely. So that's an option if your PCs, if you sense your party is not too keen on staying in Whorlstone Tunnels to do the Black Skull's bidding for a long time. But in any case, if they meet with these myconids, the book says the party is actually awarded with 50 XP each for just parlaying with the Myconids. All right, moving on. Once the PCs has passed the Parade of Fools, they will actually stumble into a fungi thicket, and basically it's just an entire corridor, a T-shaped corridor that is just covered in fungi. And if the PCs actually walk through this thicket as medium size, it will actually be difficult terrain. And if they decide, and obviously there will be pygmy wolves and big wigs around the place, and if the PCs do actually decide to eat the pygmy wolves and they get shrunk down to size to small, it is still difficult terrain, but if you are shrunk down to tiny, then it's not. So it really depends how you want to play. Like, do the PCs, like, if is the effects of the pygmy wolf cumulative, like if you eat 2, you will get shrunk down twice from the size that you became. But in any case, the idea here is that as the PCs are traveling through the fungi thicket in the smaller size, assuming they will be attacked by a swarm of insects, and there'll be like about 5 swarms, I think, altogether, each coming on separate rounds. But of course, obviously, sometimes the PCs, PCs being the PCs, they will still say, like, why don't we just burn through this place? And the book actually does give you some stats of what's the AC and what's the hit points of the fungi thicket, and how much they clear with fire or with, by just hacking and slashing. But there is that possibility of them actually igniting one of those fungi that explodes. So that's something that the PCs may want to be aware of, or something that the DM can just pull off on the PCs for just burning the entire thicket now. And once they've passed the thicket, going one, so the thicket itself ends in going two ways. One goes towards the east, one goes towards the west. If they go towards the east, they will actually find themselves on the other side of the disease lake, and then from there on they can just proceed to the next location. But according to the book, the next place they should be going is actually through the west, and that's actually where Jookey will be passing through. So Jookey is going to pass through from the Poopai Pass to the other side of the lake, and he's going to enter into the fungi thicket, and then he's going to this next place, which is the Whorlstone Mesa. So the Whorlstone Mesa is basically just this giant set of cliffs, spiral cliffs that the PCs can actually go walk all the way to the top. And the idea here is that the Whorlstone Mesa is actually is suffused with the Fey rays, and for some reason it actually managed to captures echoes and sounds that is happening above the Whorlstone Tunnels. And for some reason, if the PCs concentrate well enough, they can actually listen to the particular echo that happens in the past in the Gracklstugh. And so this is actually where the PCs can actually try to decipher some sort of secrets or conversations or dialogue that happen on Gracklstugh. And this can be sounds that happens in the past as well. So they can actually find out more clues about what the Keeper of Flame are thinking, or what the Stone Guard is planning, or if you want to make it go a little bit beyond that, you can say what the Deep King is thinking as well, or maybe even what the Darrows are talking about in the Council of Sevens building. So that's one place to drop some hints and secrets if you needed a place for that. But at the same time, if the PCs are intending to try to listen in on these secrets, they will have to make a Wisdom saving throw, DC 12. And any failure will cause them to gain 1 level of madness if they fail by 5. If it's a normal failure, they will only take 2d6 psychic damage, and half for success and full for failing. Yeah. And they can only listen to the amount of times, or to the number of sounds equal to their wisdom mod. So that's actually not a lot, but per person. So that's it, but it can add up to quite a bit depending on the size of the party. Alright, so after they've passed the Whorlstone Mesa, the next place they would be entering is the Diadem. So the Diadem is not that complex. It's basically just a system of caves, and basically there's a thing called the Giant Spider King, and he has like a few giant spiders living with him, and basically that's just about it. There's just a PCs fighting through some giant spiders and some and a more modified version of the giant spider stats. But the idea is that if they do end up fighting in this place, and you know the spiders are not that difficult to deal with, but if they do fight in this place, they would actually alert the next location, which is the Grey Ghost Garden. So that means if any fighting occurs in the Diadem, the Grey Ghost, in the adjacent room would be able to prepare for invaders to coming in. That could actually be a bit challenging for the PCs if they do make it to the next area. And in the Grey Ghost Garden is actually a combination of between the Grey Ghost and the Grey Alchemist. So this is supposed to be some sort of like a secret lab of the Grey Ghost, and the Grey Ghosts are actually supposed to be the thieves guild of Gracklstugh. And in this garden is actually where they grow some fungi that they use to turn into poisons, and that's obviously in the specialization of the alchemist, and that's what he's there for. So if the PC stumble through the Diadem and enter into the Grey Ghost Garden, whether it is from the Diadem itself or it's from the front door of the Grey Ghost Garden itself, and if the Duergars hurt them, they will obviously be ambushed by these Duergars. And as you remember, Duergars can turn invisible, and the Grey Ghosts, actually use. They do not use actual weapons. They actually use their soul blades. So you will actually find their stats as the Duergar soul blades, and there is an updated version of this Duergar soul blades in Modern Canaan's Tomb of Foes. So that's and this is also where Droki would come for his first delivery to deliver the black metal to the Grey Ghost, and he would deliver it to the Grey Alchemist. And so if the PCs just barge in and kill all the Grey Ghosts and kill the Grey Alchemist, they can obviously search the room to find all sorts of things. And among besides the supplies, alchemist supplies that the PCs will be able to loot for future use, there is actually let me just see if I get that right. Yeah, there are actually some letters hidden in the Grey Alchemist's desk that actually sort of can be used as proof of evidence that some of the Duergar Stonga is corrupted. So this is actually something that the PCs can actually bring back to early Black Skull, and she has a quest with them that if the PC can bring back proof of corruption happening within Gracklstugh, then they can complete the quest and actually get some reward out of it. So this is actually the place where such evidence can be found, and this evidence actually links Gorglak, who is actually the Duergar guard who stands at the entrance. So if the PCs actually did not enter Gracklstugh from the Dark Lake and they enter from the front entrance, that is where they will meet Gorglak, who asks for a bribe in terms of a well-crafted weapon, magic or otherwise. And different things that the PCs can obviously take. There will be like acids, flasks of acids, alchemist fire in there, and there's a fungi pit, and the PCs can actually collect some of the fungi if they are so inclined. And during the fight in itself with the Grey Ghost Soul Blades, there's actually a sort of like a sprinkler tank that the PCs can actually use to host, water hose them and cause an effect called that's equivalent to a Stinking Cloud spell. So this is actually like one of the first plot major location in the Whorlstone Tunnels. This is actually the location of where the Grey Ghosts are hiding and doing their work. Now, after they leave the Grey Ghost area, the next place they would go to would be the Fountain of Evil. Now, the Fountain of Evil is actually the next intersection of the two locations, and depending where the PCs want to go, if the PCs basically there's a ramp that goes up, and then there's a tunnel that continues on the surface level, on the same level as the PCs. If the PCs actually do decide to go onto the same level, it will eventually take them to the Obelisk. And if the PCs actually do decide to go up, then it will actually take them to I believe it is the Cultist Pens. Yes, it will take them to the Cultist Pens. So it really depends where the PCs want to go. But in any case, there's going to be a pool of water there. That's where a water weird is actually defending, sort of. but it only attacks the PCs if it decides to go up the ramp and taking them towards the cultist areas. And the worst that could happen is only them having to fight off a water weird. They can actually control the water to create a geyser. They can actually lift it up to the ramp to attack the PCs. But other than that, there's not much complexity with this particular room. So let's say the PCs do continue on and just avoid the water weird altogether and decide to go towards the cultist pens. There's not much there except that in the cultist pens there is going to it's basically where the Darrow cultists are just hanging out, and they have pens where they have kept some cave bears inside of it. So it's just an encounter for the PCs to defeat the cultists and also the cave bears there inside of it. But however, from the cultist pen, there is actually a secret path that if the PCs can squeeze into it, obviously by eating a pygmy wolf, it will take them through a place called the Quasit Playground, and that is basically where the Quasit familiars or Quasit servants of the Darrow cultists are hanging out. But these Quasits are not exactly totally loyal to the cultists. So the PCs can actually capture some of these Quasits and make them talk, and it will actually spill out who is the leader of the Darrow cultists, and the Darrow's cultists, and the cultist leader's name is actually by the name of Narak. So Narak is going to be the leader of the cultists, of the Darrow cultists within the Whorlstone Tunnels, and he's going to be kind of like the final boss of the Whorlstone Tunnels, so to speak, depending on how the PCs play it out. All right. So if the PCs do go through the Quasit Playground and they only have to deal with I think it's only like 5 Quasits if I'm not mistaken. It's not a lot. And cultists, the Quasits being Quasits, they are not exactly a very challenging monster except for their invisibility abilities. 4 Quasits, yeah. So that's not very difficult to manage, but the PCs will have to make a decision of whether they want to go through that particular crack, and without knowing that there are Quasits inside of it. All right. Now, one of the last places that the PCs have left is actually the cultist hideout. So this is actually where the Narak actually lives in, and if the PCs enter through the Quasit Playground, they can actually ambush him. But if they don't, they actually enter from the front entrance. Then they will have to try to silence a bunch of fungi shriekers, and shriekers are actually a very good alarm system, and they don't stop ringing for as long as the PCs are within the proximity that the shriekers actually start shrieking. And this is actually where they would find Narak sitting on top of a platform in the cultist hideout. And if I'm not mistaken, this is actually where there would be a Etin. If I'm not mistaken, there will be an Etin there that's guarding Narak and the other cultists. And when they reach in the cultist hideout, that's actually where they would see the plot of Narak and his cultists, which is actually they're trying to change all the stone giants in King Grom Cavern to grow a second head because of Demogorgon, fall into the influence of madness, and then cause a rampage into the city. And this is actually where Droki has to make his second and last delivery, which is the stone giant clippings, nail clippings. So Narak is actually using some kind of ritual to use these stone clippings to actually turn the stone giant that the clippings belong to under the influence of Demogorgon. And they are going to be able to find this ritual by searching through the cultist itself, the cultist hideout itself. Once they've eliminated Narak and all the other Darrow, and they will also see the statues of the stone giants being carved and being morphed by Narak's rituals. Obviously, including the one that was morphed the first time with 2 heads by the name of Dorhun back in Gracklstugh itself. So all this by defeating all Narak and all the other cultists, the PCs will basically effectively have stopped the entire Darrow plot, and there will obviously be a lot of items and evidences that can be found within the hideout itself that can be sent to Captain Erday as evidence about the Demogorgon influence, the cultists and Demogorgons, and the plot and the cultists' plot about the city. So that will actually grant them some XP as well, like 100 XP for discovering the plot, and then for 150 XP for the evidence. Yeah. Now that that's pretty much settled and done, we are actually not finished with the Whorlstone Tunnels. There are actually a few more locations to go for the PCs to really get the entire picture of what's happening in the Whorlstone Tunnels. Even though they have already defeated and eliminated the Grey Ghost and the Darrow Cultists. The next place they will have to go after and this is actually the last location where Jookey will be after he's delivered his the stuff, the clippings to Narak. He will actually leave and then he will actually go back out through a section of the Whorlstone Tunnels that will not be covered anymore in the rest of this video. So after the PCs are done, they will not have found Pelek's hand yet. So the next location, it will be called the dumping pits, and it's basically just a giant pit where they have like bodies being dumped, and these are some of it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, are actually failed experiments of Narak. And this is actually where they will find the crawling claw, the crawling claw of Pelek with his obsidian ring, and that's actually the place where they can pick it up, and wrap it somehow, and so they will be able to bring it back to Blinkenstone. Now, the final section of the Whorlstone Tunnels after the dumping pits would be the Obelisk. Now, the Obelisk here is basically just there's basically just two giant cliffs, I would say. One houses the Obelisk, and the other actually houses the Dragon Egg, where the Grey Ghost has stolen from the Keepers of Flame, and that's where he has put it. So this is the kind of like the final room of the Whorlstone Tunnels, and this is actually the one that is actually the most important to the PCs in terms of discovery, and rather than just the plot. Because if they've eliminated the Darrow's cultists, if they eliminated Narak, and if they eliminated the Grey Ghost, they're pretty much done in terms of what they need to do to get the rewards from Erde Blackskull. But if they're actually serving the Keepers of the Flame, then they will actually have to come to this area where in the last area, which is in page. Let me just see. It's in page 80, page 80, where they will actually find the Obelisk and they will find the Red Dragon Egg. So let's start with the Obelisk first. The Obelisk is basically what the Grey Ghosts have been believing they would be able to use against the Duergars, and the black metal that Droki actually delivers to them is actually supposed to be fitted into the Obelisk. So the Obelisk is just described as some sort of like a black metallic obelisk that has like scratches and scrapes around it, and the moment the PCs put a piece of the black metal, it actually sort of fixes part of the obelisk, and the PCs will be able to sense that the Fey ray seems to be emanating from it, and if they cast a spell into it, I believe they will actually gain it will actually teleport them outside. Yeah, it will actually teleport them outside of the Whorlstone Tunnels, and even outside of Gracklstugh even. So it serves as some sort of like a random portal in a sense, as how the book is written, and that's really all it says about it. I mean, this is something that I had a problem with when I was running the Out Abyss, this part of the Out Abyss for my group. Although I ran it as by the book, in the sense that once the PCs investigated the obelisk, they were sent out of Gracklstugh and they had to go back in to claim their rewards. But I believe that the obelisk definitely could have been made a bit more interesting in terms of its capabilities, and maybe you can make it even more plot relevant or narrative relevant to your group, or even just giving a better explanation of what the obelisk does. But maybe I'll get back to that in a little bit. So let's just go on to the second part of this place, which is the Red Dragon Egg. So this is obviously the Red Dragon Egg, the Keepers of Flame one, and based on what I've read from the Out of the Abyss Dungeon Masters group, most players tend to like want to keep the dragon egg and just hatch it for themselves and raise a red dragon wormling throughout for the rest of the adventure. I'm not saying that's not a good possibility to entertain as a DM, but you just have to figure out like how powerful are you going to let the PCs have with the dragon wormling, and is there a way that the Keepers of Flame would be okay with the PCs, just bagging their Red Dragon Egg, which is supposed to be the replacement for Time of Shout. So if the PCs do take the Dragon Egg to bring it back to the Keepers of Flame or to Temple Shout, there will obviously be different consequences. For example, like if the PCs do take it to the Keepers of Flames, they will be getting XP for it for good reason. And actually the Keeper of Flame himself, Gartoka Zunjong, actually promises the PCs a safe passage throughout the entire part of Gracklstugh, and maybe even leaving Gracklstugh if they keep the information about the Dragon Egg to themselves and not tell Temple Shout. Now, if they give the Dragon Egg to Temple Shout, he would destroy the egg, sealing that this is going to be his replacement, and confirming the fact. And now that without the egg, without an heir, Temple Shout is going to be hanging around in Gracklstugh for quite a long time, and he's probably going to do a lot of damage to the Keeper of Flame once they come and serve. Once he decide to take his revenge on the Keeper of Flames and maybe even the rest of Gracklstugh. So that's basically the three possibilities that the book sort of addresses, except for the part of what happens if the PCs decide to keep the Dragon Egg for themselves. So that's something you'll be on your own. All right. And one more other thing, because when the PCs do reach the Obelisk, they will actually find a Darrow servant who is there. I believe this is not Narak, or yeah, I don't think this is Narak. But there will be another Darrow servant who is actually sort of examining and sort of repairing the Obelisk, and the PCs slay him. They will actually find a piece of Elven gold coin. That's actually the result. That is actually the quest item that is needed by Yelsha Hunstad if the PCs actually do approach her in Gracklstugh to find a passage out of Gracklstugh. She is part of the Merchants Council, I believe. So she has a quest that's telling the PCs to look for where the source of the Darrow's wealth is coming from. So it's possibly that the Darrow who is repairing the obelisk is actually getting that money from the obelisk itself is actually spitting out some kind of money or teleporting some kind of wealth from somewhere. And that's where the money comes from for the Darrow. So that's gonna resolve that quest if the PCs are actually doing it. All right. And once the PCs have completed everything they need to do in the Whorlstone Tunnels, and whether they teleported out from the tunnels through the obelisk or they just return on foot, then the last section this is the last section of the book where it talks about leaving Gracklstugh, and it depends. The PCs can just immediately leave, or they can leave by doing all the jobs for Early Black Skull, who promises safe passage out of the city, possibly without selling them out to the Drow Pursuit, who may be inside or outside the city, or if the PCs are for whatever reason decide that they want to meet with the Deep King himself. And under the leaving Gracklstugh area, there's just a small page, page 82, on what happens if the PCs decide to meet with the Deep King. And actually meeting with the Deep King does lead to a potential plot thread, where in the sense that they do find out that the Deep King himself is actually under the influence of a succubus who works for Gratz. And I think that's actually a very good alternative place for the PCs to find out that by defeating all the cultists and Demogorgon's and eliminating Demogorgon's influence over the Darrow and the city, it has actually served victory to Gratz's influence on the city. So yeah, that might be a good realization for the PCs, or even the PCs can even take it upon themselves to get rid of the succubus, whose name is Shal, Shal, disguised as a female Doga. The PCs can take it upon themselves to get rid of her, and that would in that way free the Deep King from the influence of Gratz, and eventually actually clearing the entire city of demonic influence altogether. And one more thing before the PCs actually do leave that you may want to remember keeping this for the last part before they leave the city is actually to meet with the stone giants in King Kong Cavern. Now the in the book itself, the obvious reason why they would actually want to go meet with the stone giants in King Kong Cavern is because the stone speaker then wants to thank them for killing or at least subduing the stone giant that went on a rampage with two heads. And if they do meet with the stone speaker, they can actually talk to him and get some idea that things are not going well in the Underdark. The stones are crying and that sort of thing. And but the most important thing to have in the King Kong Cavern is actually they will actually get a stone speaker crystal, and this stone speaker crystal is obviously going to be linked to the second half second half of the book, where the PCs will actually have to go find an ancient stone giant library called Graven Hollow, and they will need if they do not have the stone speaker crystal with them, it will make their search for the Graven Hollow library itself a bit more difficult, but not impossible. Okay, so I guess that's basically the summary of the whole Whorlstone Tunnels, long as it may be. But let's just get into some key points, I would say, maybe key points of running the Whorlstone Tunnels. So the obvious main quest to do in the Whorlstone Tunnel is to find, trace, track, and capture Jookey if possible. The second is obviously to eliminate or stumble upon the Grey Ghost and stop them. The third would be Narak and his Demogorgon cultists. The fourth would be meeting with the Parade of Fools, which are the Myconids, and that will actually link them to Neverlight Grove. And then lastly will be Pelex Ghost, which will link them to Blinkden Stone. So if in any case, if you feel that there are some rooms that you don't really want to run the PCs through, and if they are not in any way connected to any of these five quest lines or plot lines, you can easily do away with them. And personally, I would actually even combine some of the rooms together, like the Cultist pens together with the Cultist hideout possibly, or maybe put Narak at the Obelisk. And if the PCs actually do defeat all the cultists, they can interrogate them to find out where Narak is, and then they will make it all the way to the Obelisk, and maybe find a dragon egg at the same time. So my recommendations or my suggestions about running Whorlstone Tunnels. I feel like I didn't like the vagueness of the Obelisk of what it does, because given how mysterious and how vague it was written in the book, it will probably lead to a lot more questions from the PCs who wants to really find out what it does it exactly do. And I think this is something because of the vague nature of the Obelisk itself, it actually gives a lot of opportunity for the DM to actually just play with it and do whatever they want with it. So I think if you are able to narrow the powers of the Obelisk down, or at least find a way to communicate those powers that the PC can find out through investigation other than just an Arcana check, I think it would actually be more interesting. And you can actually even try to anchor the Obelisk together with either the plot of the Grey Ghost, or maybe the plot of the Demogorgon cultists, or maybe you can just simply say that the rituals to make the two-headed giants wouldn't work without the Obelisk, or something like that. I'm sure there are definitely more ways you can think of to make the Obelisk way more interesting than what's presented in the book. So I would think, and the only reason why I'm saying this is because I felt that players will be naturally very, very curious about what the Obelisk does, and how does it fit into the whole madness and influence in Gracklstugh. So really take some time to think about it, and be prepared to answer some questions if you're just going to run it by the book. The next suggestion that I'm going to have is, because the way that Narak is presented, he's just sort of like a crazed Darrow. He doesn't have, there's no real good motivations provided behind him. So I think this is the one where you kind of have to you could either try to separate Narak from the Council of Sevens, even though he's a Seven himself, that he is just doing his own thing and the Council of Sevens are not involved. Or you could actually make it this, like Narak is actually the sort of the agent of the Council of Sevens, in the sense that he is the one who is actually doing all the work, but he's not the exact mastermind. The mastermind is still the Council of Sevens in Gracklstugh. So that actually makes this a very legitimate attempt of a coup of the Darrow against the Durga and the Deep King. So that's a relationship I think that could be a bit more thought of as a DM, and try to hash out the details of what Narek is actually trying to do. What is Narek actually trying to do in the Whorlstone Tunnels, and what is his actions is contributing towards what plot. I went along the lines that the Darrow actually trying to throw a coup at the city, so Narek would actually be a very good useful person to ask questions, and if they actually bring Narek back to earn their Black Skull, there may be repercussions to the Darrow community if the Durga find out that the Council of Sevens are the one who actually are plotting something against the Deep King. Okay, my third suggestion would say is depending on the level of your PCs by the time they arrive Gracklstugh, you may find that the combat and encounters in Whorlstone Tunnels to be quite easy actually. In my experience, it's actually quite easy. So you may need to look into adding the numbers of monsters that the PCs may be stumbling in while in the Whorlstone Tunnels. Maybe modify some stats, especially the Grey Ghost and the Darrow, because most of them fall within like the CR 2 and 3 range, which is not going to be a real challenge for a party of 4 of level 3 or so. So I feel that you're in a dungeon, so I guess the appeal of a dungeon is to have deadly combat, and the Whorlstone Tunnel doesn't really provide that by default as written. So that's something you're gonna have to really pay attention to when you look through each of the rooms and find out what are the monster stats that are being provided, and you're gonna have to know your PCs well at what level they are. I think a party of level 3s would relatively find most of the encounters, in Whorlstone Tunnels quite manageable. If you're level 4 or 5 onwards, I think it will be quite a cakewalk for the most part for the PCs. So if you want to make Whorlstone Tunnels a bit more of a challenge, I would suggest that you need to do a bit more work in terms of crunching the numbers and so on. All right. And the other recommendation that I have is regarding the Keeper of the Flame. So we know that if the PCs return the dragon egg to the Keeper of the Flame, the Keeper of the Flame will actually provide them with access to the entire part of the city. But I would change that to say that the reward for helping the Keeper of the Flame and to keep Tempershock in the dark about his real fate would probably be just to force a meeting audience with the Deep King, and you could just say it's like the Deep King trying to show appreciation towards the party. And this actually sort of ties in with my next suggestion, which is if the PCs do meet with the Deep King, try to portray him as him being excessive. And excessive, you could just say that royalty is usually excessive in any means, but if the PCs actually do know their Durga lore and how the society is structured, you can actually easily portray the Durga is actually practicing things that are antithesis to the way of Durga life, and that will actually tip the PCs off that something's wrong with the king himself, and then that's where you can introduce the succubus, and then you can actually hint to the PCs that the Deep King is actually under Gratz's influence, who is the epitome of access, and if this demonic influence continues on, Gracklstugh will be destroyed from inside instead of by the forces of the Darrow. So I feel that there's a more connective tissue between helping the Keepers of the Flame, which allows them to see a different side of the city and a different force at play in Gracklstugh in itself. And I think that's an easier way to make the PCs meet the king, rather than depending on the PC initiative to say I want to go meet the king for whatever reason, which is not sufficiently provided by the book. So by using the Keepers of the Flame, and there's actually good reason why the Keepers of the Flame should be the one who provides audience with the PCs to meet the king, because by making sure that Tempershock doesn't know about the egg, the PCs has sort of sealed that there will be a new dragonsmith, there will be a new wormsmith in the city. So that's actually a pretty big deal, I would feel, that deserves an audience with the king in Gracklstugh. Now, my last two suggestions were obviously, with the Parade of Fools and Pelex Ghost. These are obviously two links that you could use to make the PC decide where the next destination would be. In one way, if you really want to play, like if you really want to push the idea, push the PCs towards Neverlight Grove, you could say that Stu gets kidnapped or something like that by the adult Myconids or Rubber Dump, and they have escaped and they ran off to Neverlight Grove, and the PCs, if the PCs feel inclined to go and rescue Stu, then they will say, yeah, the next place if you want to go is Neverlight Grove, and they can talk to and I think it will be easy to get the Dual Guard to cooperate to tell them where Neverlight Grove is, and that's where they can go next. But if the next place that you want to push the PC to go to is Blingdenstone, then Pelex Ghost actually provides a very good link, because it actually requires the PC to actually go to Blingdenstone to bury his remains in order to get the XP reward that comes with finishing Pelex Ghost. But don't forget that the other means that the PCs would actually want to go to Blingdenstone is actually through Whorlstone, who may actually give an idea to the PCs that the real people who know the way out of the Underdark is actually through Blingdenstone. So I mean, it really depends how you set up the PCs with, and what do they know while they are in the Whorlstone Tunnels, or what do they know while they're in Gracklstugh. If the PCs do not meet Whorlstone in Gracklstugh, then Pelex Ghost can actually be an optional route to have a reason to go to Blingdenstone. And if for whatever reason you feel like the PC should be allowed to leave the Underdark through Gracklstugh, or making a deal with Whorlstone for whatever reasons, you can easily just take away the Parade of Fools and the Pelex Ghost quest line to limit your options, so to speak. So yeah, just bear that in mind, that these are the sort of options that are available to you. Now, for my final section of this video, I'm going to just give some really random ideas, out of the box ideas that are totally not within the book itself, but something you can just think about, and maybe put it in your version or modify it to your version of how you run out the Abyss. As you probably may have heard me say it a few times in the previous video and this video, is that I'm not a real big fan of Demogorgon being the main influencing demon in Gracklstugh. And I've already mentioned that since Gratz is already mentioned as a potential influence, I would actually like to keep bring up another demon lord to show that something's wrong with the city, rather than Demogorgon again, especially after Boopadoo. And I'm also not a big fan of the whole entire plot of the demon cultists trying to turn all the giants into two-headed giants and rampage across the city. What I feel could have been a better plot line, and it's a more stronger plot line in the sense that it connects the quest of Droki together with the Keeper of the Flame, together with the Black Skull, and together with the Demogorgon cultist, is to put it all together with the Dragonade. And I know what you may think, and this may be putting all the eggs in one basket, but I feel that if the plot of the Darrow is to actually grab the Dragonade, it actually makes it can be explained in a way that makes a bit more sense in terms of the social hierarchy and the organization in Gracklstugh in itself. So I'll just explain it from my point of view. So the Darrow, if the Council of Sevens want to overthrow the Deep King and spread Demogorgon influence, they actually you can actually just say they hired the Grey Ghost to go and steal the Dragonade from the Keepers of the Flame, and once they've grab the Dragonade, they're going to use the ritual that Narek knows to sort of morph the Dragonade into a Demogorgon's version of Dragonade, like a two-headed dragon or something like that. And when that dragon hatches out and and becomes the new Wormsmith, then Demogorgon will effectively have full control on the city. in a sense that the actual fires that fuels the industry of Gracklstugh comes from a demonic dragon in itself. Now you can play on the flip side in the sense that the cultists are trying to sort of morph the dragon egg to Demogorgon's side, but if the PCs recover the egg and return it to the Keepers of Flame, it could actually be morphed by the Deep King side or the Keepers of Flame who serve the Deep King into be more subservient to Grats. And actually there is a series of Adventure League expeditions that sort of explores the idea that Grats actually has a few fire giant children, and they try to keep up their own forges, and you could actually use that as a counterbalance in a way that this is an external force that the Deep King may allow to enter into the city. If let's say the dragon egg is destroyed, Temple Shout is killed, and they need a new source of fire, and it could come from Gratz's own half fire giant and demon children. So that's, I feel like by using this particular plot line, you actually tie all the motivations and all the organizations together more neatly and more tightly than what was provided in the book, where it appears it's almost by chance that the PCs either work with the Stone Guard or the Keepers of Flame. Why not make them work together? And therefore my last idea is that maybe you could even think about making the Grey Ghosts and the Darrows as allies. They are working together for a bigger plot, and I think that actually makes them actually a much more interesting group as villains of Gracklstugh, rather than them being just existing within the shadows of Gracklstugh society. And given how they were presented in the book, they actually don't really get a good highlight or a good enough understanding for the PCs to really empathize with them of what they're trying to do. They are just like disposable pushovers for them to get rid of, and they are more of a nuisance than a threat. And I feel that's a real pity in terms of given the amount of wealth of lore that you are given about the Grey Ghost and the Darrow and the Council of Savants. And I think the Council of Savants actually doesn't really get a good description in the book in itself. It's pretty light on lore, so I feel like they could have been easily enriched with more involvement in the plot, or made it to be a bit more interesting. So that's all I have for Whorlstone Tunnels, and that will conclude my coverage of prepping for Gracklstugh Chapter 4. Naturally, my next video will be going on to Chapter 5, which is Neverlight Grove, and obviously that's a subject for another video. So if you have any ideas, you have any comments, you have any questions, any clarification, you have any asking for advice of any kind, feel free to just drop it in the comments and let me know, and I'll try to get back to you in whatever way I can. And yeah, so I guess that's about it for me for tonight. And I hope that you, with all these ideas, take them and leave them, use what you need, and hopefully with the summary as well, you know where to find the things that you need to find when you're running this chapter. And hopefully your running of all the Abyss in Gracklstugh will be as good as you want it to be. So this is the Questing GM signing out for now. Bye.